Since the early 1970s, inspired by the hippies' spiritual leader Phil Wally Russell, thousands of people, representing Britain's alternative youth subculture, flocked to the Stonehenge People's Free Festival. However, in 1985, negotiations for the use of the site broke down between the festival organisers and the custodians of the monument, English Heritage, who obtained a High Court injunction to stop the event from taking place. Despite this, 500 revellers were determined to reach the stones for a month-long festival. On the 2nd of June 1985, 1,500 police officers stopped them in what became known as the Battle of the Beanfield. We asked Keith Bailey, bass player with the space punk band Here and Now, how he became involved with the Stonehenge Festival, and what it is that continues to influence the people who still attempt to attend the summer solstice, 20 years after the festival was banned.
We used to supply the PA and the lights for Stonehenge for about 5 years. It was done in cooperation with a lot of other people. There were people from Brighton University who were running benefits to raise money for scaffolding for a stage and generators and all that sort of thing. But the point of the whole thing was that we weren't doing it because we wanted to get rich and famous and get laid. We were doing it because we wanted to do it. It was a good thing. There was a very positive feeling in the air, and everything was working in a spirit of mutual cooperation rather than who was going to make the most mega bucks out of any given deal.
Numerous bands from the alternative music scene played at the Stonehenge Free Festival during its 11-year history. We spoke to Nick Turner, former sax player and vocalist with the legendary rock band Hawkwind, about what drove tens of thousands of people to regularly attend the festival for over a decade.
I think we were there from the start, really, playing, just we thought it was a nice idea, a nice event, something symbolic, something spiritual, something ancient, something for everyone. I mean, it became very popular, it got publicised in the music press, it became very sensational, News of the World loved it. Sex orgies, Sid Rawls was there at the forefront with flowers in his hair. The police didn't like it because they couldn't control it, really. And the last Stonehenge Festival, it was said that by the police that if there was somebody there that they could talk to, a responsible person or a responsible body, then they wouldn't mind it going on. And what had happened was some very unruly people who'd taken the law into their own hands and burnt down the night watchman's hut, trashed a police car, trashed a couple of civilian cars, and put the police in a very embarrassing position of the fact that they could do very little about it. They could do nothing about it, in fact. I mean, they could have stormed on and had a riot, but they didn't want to do that.
The unruly element to trashing police cars, and using physical force in a number of unsavoury ways was simply playing into government hands, providing them with banner headlines and a just cause to break up this bunch of irresponsible lunatics, who happen to appear on Stonehenge every so often.
Personally provided a stage which has been there, a pyramid-shaped stage which has been used for probably the last 10 years at Stonehenge. We hired quite a lot of equipment generally, and then we organised collections in order to recoup the money to pay for the equipment that we hired. The fuel for generators was as a result of collections as well. I mean, people donated a lot to Stonehenge. I personally donated a lot. I never particularly wanted to get anything back from it. I just thought it was a really nice event, and if it was going to be there, I thought, well, it should be organised properly to some degree. So I'll do what I can, not organise it, but contribute some part to it to make it go better, make it more fun, make it more exciting, make it more less chaotic, really.
I think the truth of the matter was that 95% of the people who were there to coexist peacefully in an unregulated condition. And as such, it was a very powerful event, very powerful on that level. I don't think anybody who was ever there will ever forget the times they spent there.
Now all the youth of England are on fire, and silken dalliance in the wardrobe lies. Now thrive the armourers, and honour's thought reigns solely in the breast of every person. They sell the pasture now to buy the bus, following the mirror of all Romany travellers with winged heels as English Mercuries. For now sits expectation in the air, and hides a sword from hilts unto the point with crowns imperial, crowns and coronets promised to Wally Hope and his followers.
A lot of the people that would go to Stonehenge would sort of work for the whole year with the sole goal of going to Stonehenge and meeting all their friends, trading, selling their buses or whatever they had to sell or buy, you know, dealing various commodities, drugs included, I suppose. You know, I mean, that's a very ancient sort of tradition at Stonehenge, because the ancient Druids were supposed to have gone to Stonehenge at the summer solstice and imbibed lots of fly agaric mushrooms, mead, and ivy, and got very high and had bacchanalian feasts, as they used to call it.
Whatever you like, rice, tea, scarves, acid has, coke, everything.
As in all cases, you know, with freedom, 9 times out of 10, the first thing you do when you're given some kind of freedom is abuse it. And certainly that took place, but as any loving parent will tell you, you have to allow that. You have to allow the child to sort his own mistakes out, otherwise he'll never learn.
In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the actions of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard-flavoured rage. Then lend the eye a terrible aspect. Let it pry through the portage of the head like a brass cannon. Let the brow o'erwhelm it as fearfully doth the gullet rock o'erhang and jutty his confounded face, swilled with the wild and wasteful ocean. Set the teeth and stretch the nostril wide. Hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit into its full height. On, you noblest travellers whose blood is fed from fathers of war proof. Fathers that, like so many Alexanders, have in these parts from morn to night fought, and sheathe their swords for lack of argument. Dishonour not your mothers. Now attest that those whom thou called father did beget you. Be copy now to men of grosser blood, and teach them how to war. And you, good travellers, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the metal of your pasture. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not. For there is none of you so mean and base that hath not noble lustre in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Wally, travellers, and St. Jude!
I don't think anybody wanted to fight. We wanted to go to a rock and roll festival, a free one. But we all set off with the idea that there was going to be some trouble, because the police had been putting notices up everywhere, like where we was going to see them, saying that there was going to be no festival. We knew there was a High Court injunction, and like so everybody had a sort of like militant attitude when we set off anyway. But it was good. It was like it was really beautiful, the unity. You know, there was 500 odd people there, all knowing like that they were liable to get arrested if the police went as far as they'd have to go. You know what I mean? Most of us thought, well, you know, they might try and stop us, yeah, but you couldn't really have imagined the way they did it.
Because we had a number of motorcycle escorts tearing about in advance of all of this stuff coming down the road, one came back and said there's humongous numbers of police ahead and you're driving straight to it. And so the first few vehicles decided to turn down a country lane to the left, then got us back on our original north-south track. But by doing that, it then targeted ourselves with 500 motors directly at the police operations on the Park House roundabout. So all of the shields and defences and gravel trucks and everything else that they had parked that way to meet the oncoming army light, suddenly, bloody heck, there's all of this going off untold, and they moved the whole machine 90 degrees round to the right. Gravel trucks were in front, they upended, put 2 4-ton obstructions in the middle of the road. 2 squadrons of coppers came up this road and started to beat out the windscreens of the first 20 vehicles. And they were hurting people by dragging them out windscreens before they'd even introduced themselves or asked what they wanted.
News of this has gone like shoof, straight through the convoy. Wow, right, they're doing the front end. And then news come back that they were attacking the back vehicles as well. and there's a hedgerow all along this side of the road. We just drove vehicles straight through the hedge into this field. So then quite a few people got together and we were fighting with them. It must have been about 4 hours when they were trying to come onto the field. The police had issued a sort of ultimatum to us that the only options were that we could either leave our vehicles and walk towards the police and be arrested and processed, or they was going to come in and get us. So we didn't really want to surrender, and we didn't want them to come in and get us either. So no one knew really what to do. We knew there were too many of them to fight by this time because they totally surrounded us. It's like a Apache or something where, you look up on the hillside and there's just lines and lines and lines of police, And a lot of people were pretty frightened there. A lot of girls there, a lot of children, a lot of people who didn't want to know anything about revolution or anything, In the midst of all the confusion, the decision was sort of partly been taken, partly just caught. Everyone's got in their wagons, started them up, and started to head down the field towards where this gate was. So at that, the police have come running in the gate, and then the ones all round on the hill and everything, they've all moved in. And for the next half hour, people were panicking, trying to get away, driving their vehicles round this field, right? And all around you, the police were crawling all over people's vehicles, busting the windows, crawling in, dragging the guy out of the driver's seat, or girl, whatever, dragging them out. There's people on the floor, with their hands on their head, and there's police still punching them and kicking them and hitting them with sticks. They just really wanted to beat us up, to try and, instill in us the fear that they hadn't instilled, when they saw that we weren't going to obey the injunction, they thought, right then, we'll just have to give them a slap on the wrist, but slaps on the wrist isn't what's going to do the trick.
It still hadn't done the trick by the late 1980s, when thousands of travellers and revellers persisted in making the trek to Stonehenge to celebrate the summer solstice, despite the sure and certain knowledge that not only was the High Court injunction still in space, with the added threat of a 5-mile exclusion zone around the monument, but also because no one had organised a festival, and the regular bands had no intention of attending it anyway. It seemed as if the alternative youth subculture had another agenda, that of irritating the right-wing Thatcher government by tying up police resources.
The Wiltshire Constabulary, knowing that there were going to be a large number of people arriving at the monument at that time, did actually offer a sort of deal whereby everyone could actually get to the stones. They were given a route to walk through.
And walk to the stones they did. Except Wiltshire police hadn't fully explained the situation. Although the revellers were being allowed to walk to the stones, when the people arrived at the monument they were corralled on the A344, but not allowed into the site itself. When they realised that the world's press had been invited to a private solstice party, at which they were seen to be unruly gatecrashers, it was only a matter of time before tempers frayed and violence broke out.
Where's the press? Please, they attacked us. We stood up here, we saw the whole thing rush through the barriers. They started that attack. Now they're attacking us. They're charging everybody. I mean, why are they doing this? Why?
We have no chance of getting down now, and if we want our legs in one piece. I think it brings disgrace. I think it brings disgrace upon your office in particular. I hope that you retire at the end of the month a happy man, and I don't know how you sleep.
That's peace-loving people for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. D Division, where the hell are you going?
By dawn on solstice morning, it was time to move the uninvited on once again, including a showcase arrest, for the benefit of the TV news crews, of an agent provocateur undercover policeman.
Hey! You see what's going on here? Look, I want to stand on this pavement!
You've been arrested.
Okay, I've been arrested.
Up the road. Okay. Get him down here and put some handcuffs on him. Lay down.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Get handcuffs on him.
You see what's going on? I get an handcuff, like, want to sit on the pavement and look at stone end. So what's the charge? Well, don't you know the charge?
I don't care what you have to say. You are the guy.
You must disperse. The crowd must disperse or further arrest.
You don't want to hurt your leg. Well, let me go. Come on, man. Come on, man.
The world's press had another unexpected treat when English heritage security personnel, with the blind eye compliance of the police, attacked hippies right in front of their cameras.
And are they going to do anything? Have they seen it?
Bloody animals!
Do what? Get the press out of there.
Let 'em in, I say, let 'em in!
Why aren't they there?
But attempting to stop the press from filming the more unsavoury aspects of policing at Stonehenge summer solstice was a contradiction English heritage was never able to artfully explain.
Which land where?
That land over there, where the police are standing on the edge of, this side. Who owns that land?
That's English heritage land.
So how come I'm not allowed to go over there and photograph?
I don't know. Who's not allowing you to do it?
The police at English Heritage won't allow me to go over there and film it. So if it's National Trust land, there's nothing to stop me going over there and filming, is there? Because they're not here to stop me.
I'm not stopping you.
Thank you. They've said to come back over here because that is National Trust property and they're contracted by the National Trust, and therefore as a representative they're refusing me access to the land.
Well, don't give me your... Well, because you're just like a civilian person like us now. Yeah. So you've come here, somehow you've been let through.
We came all the way from Canada to see this, you know?
And then you got here, and there's a whole lot of English people over the other side of that fence who are being prevented from entering by policemen, either number 33. Yeah. So why you come up to me? Because I'm not attacking you.
With the hippies finally driven off the land, it was time for the constabulary to explain their actions. Except no one asked the right questions.
Do you have plans now about the hippies who are camping on illegal ground and
well,
sort
we've
of
got to
generally
deal with
in the
it, haven't
area?
we? We've got to deal with it.
They will be asked to move on.
They're illegally trespassing.
The eviction of an overnight camp in a lay-by 2 miles from the monument was the last act of the police that morning. Following up on a rumour that the police intend to trash the travellers whilst en route to their illegal camp at Chalderton, several news crews followed the hippies. This had the bizarre side effect of protecting them from the violent intentions of the police, because the cops were not about to attack revellers right in front of the world's media.
Us against the police, in terms of armed strength, we're going to lose all the time because they've got limitless funds.
I quite understand that English heritage are bending over backwards to try and find some sort of peaceable solution to the situation. But without some sort of permanent site being established, I really can't see any reconciliation.
Because Stonehenge was so big that, and because there was Stonehenge no more for a time, that it might have been just as good an idea for everybody to go to their own local sacred site and have a festival there. And I still believe that. Although, in many ways, it is it's probably of importance to people that there should be a central site where they feel that they can communicate with their brothers, and for that to be the main meeting place.
In order to stop the annual cycle of summer violence at Stonehenge, in the late 1980s, Michael Eavis, the then organiser of the Glastonbury Festival, offered to buy a plot of land adjacent to the stones and obtain a public entertainment licence so it could be used for legal solstice festivals. However, his offer was rejected by local landowners.
It seems to me that that's probably the most sensible solution that's been put forward, full stop. However, it seems that the farmers and the local powers that be consider this to be totally out of hand, completely outrageous and unworkable. But nonetheless, they're still confronted with this same problem every year, and it seems to me that that is the simplest solution to the situation, having a permanent festival site.
This could be your last chance, so take it with both hands. This could be your last chance.